Alright, welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner, Classic Less Known Classics. This is episode number 2971 and episode number 2865. 65. So, with this one discussing the last two trades that collect issues from Gerry Duggan's run for X-Men and Iron Man. So this trade, this first one here, X-Men by Gerry Duggan, Volume 6, it does not contain the final issue of the run. Nope, it does not contain 35. That's in a separate trade. So this is most of the remaining issues. It's still dealing with the whole Fall of X thing. So, yes, it's on the cover. Wolverine is back to the classic John Byrne and no longer the... So, there's a series of stories happening here. Spider-Man, of course, is part of the X-Men roster in these issues. Now, Xavier is not in these issues. Apocalypse is not here. Let's see. Magneto is not here, and neither is Forge. Of course, you have the writing here done by, of course, Gerry Duggan. The artwork for these issues, for the most part, for the first three issues, 30 and 32 are done by Phil Noto, and you have Joshua Cassara doing issues 33 and 34. Now, throughout these issues, it's been one-shot stories. So, the first story is basically about Scott and Jean, where they're basically just, doing their own thing, and then, of course, he's in therapy. At one point, he's in therapy, apparently he decided to wear his old 70s outfit for some reason. Don't know why, but he did, with the visor closed. Apparently, he's under supervision of Mr. Sinister. And then we switch over to, get this, Snitch and Laura McKinley, aka, in this book she's known as Talon. Now, I have met one of her co-creators, and he does not have a problem with the older version of Laura being called Talon. Do you want to know why? Okay, the reason why, because that was actually going to be her original code name, was going to be Talon. And it's basically continuing their relationship here. And it's really these issues that Laura is this Laura here, who is the same Laura who debuted in NYX number 3, and this is the same character. There is, of course, a young version of Laura running around that is a duplicate of Laura. Not a clone per se, more like a time-displaced duplicate of her. And so there's a Counter Earth here, and it's revealed in these issues that this Laura, that the older Laura is dead. She died at some point, and she was basically just kept alive in Snitch's mind. And eventually, he just let her go. And she's gone. Completely. Sad to see her go. There's a little bit of stuff here where it looked like Iron Man and... throughout these couple issues here, focuses on... and of course, reveal at the end of issue 30 that... Because the first half focused on Scott and Jean, second half focused on Laura and Snitch, which revealed at the end of the issue they're sharing the same body in his head. And by 32, he kind of in a way is like in a coma while Nimrod shows up. Of course, Spider-Man's here, and of course, deal with Wilson Fisk, who's reunited with his wife, Typhoid Mary. And eventually, after defeating her, he just lets her go. Yeah, and also Kitty Pryde is back with the X-Men here. Of course, they've made it with Lockhead, and there's Magic here too. This whole issue will focus on Magic and, of course, Polaris. There was, of course, the Stark Sentinels, which, of course, these Sentinels were not built by Tony Stark. The first ones were. These ones were not. The first ones were built due to, technically he did build them, but he did not know he built them. That was because the clone of Red Skull basically did them. These ones were built by Orpheus, which one never decided to take over his company. So the very next, I love the artwork of these. I think the artwork is fantastic. The last couple of issues focus on look like Emma Frost and Wolverine. It's basically the X-Men Beyond the Run. At one point you see Forge, who does pop in these issues, eventually not wearing the outfit on the cover, and deal with the X-Men of Doom. Deploy the X-Men of Doom. Yeah, where Dr. has his own X-Men, because of course he does. And eventually we see Cyclops, where it looks like he's wearing, looks like a variant of his 90s outfit, a little bit. Yes. And eventually we move on to issue 34, which is the last issue in this trade, which was at the time the penultimate issue of this run before I got relaunched just this year. And this mostly put is dealing with the fall of Orpheus. Yes. The evil basically the anti-mutant organization that basically includes people as part of its organization. I kid you not. MODOK, the Vulture, Judas Traveler. You're like, what? Judas Traveler from the Clone Saga. Yeah, he's part of this organization. Trying to think who else is part of this group. Like, it was a mixture of like Spider-Man characters and X-Men characters. MODOK is part of this group too. And it's the original MODOK, which is weird. Oh yeah, and Kitty Pryde is basically like a ninja here. And good stuff here. And I like last issue ends with Wolverine holding a sword. And looks like he's in Manjapur. Yeah, it looks like he's possibly like in Manjapur. I think actually he's in Little Tokyo. And that's the final issue. That's the last issue in this book ends. I gotta admit, the stories here are really good. I mean, despite what you might think of the Krakoa stuff, in my estimate, I love the Hickman stuff that he did. The Duggan stuff was always up and down. For the first 4 trades, it was like that. It was either like up and down, was not really consistent, and then got to the last couple trades, and they're very consistently good. Yep. Now, this is not giving final thoughts on his thoughts on Time and X-Men because, well, they've got one more trade for that one. I will, however, go through his last trade for Iron Man. This being Invincible Iron Man, Volume 3, known as Iron Diamond. This is his last trade. This book collects issues 13 and 20 of Invincible Iron Man. I believe this is Volume 4. In a way, this is kind of I'm not sure how many volumes this is for Iron Man. He's been launched many times over the years. So, the writing of this book is, of course, done by Gerry Duggan. The artwork for the first issue is done by Juan Fragari, and the remaining issues is Andrea Davanino, who does basically 14, 19, 20, 15, 16, 18 is done by Wilden Wong. Patrick Zurcher does issue 17. Mostly put, here's what happens. You have basically Stark and Emma Frost, who are married, and at one point these two do sleep together. Yes, they do. Because that was something Duggan wanted to do. He really wanted these two to sleep together so badly. They go off to space, and eventually he's heading off to Magneto for a bit. And at one point, you have toward the end of the book, you finally have James Rhodes in the book, and it kind of feels like an Iron book. And it kind of deals with the guy who took over his company toward the end of the book. The guy who had forced has to go over his company, who basically is from Mars. Which the only reason why he did this is because something that Hickman did. I am not kidding about that. Because something that Hickman did in his Avengers book, that's the whole reason why the guy was involved with Orishas in the first place. And so, by the end of the book, he does get his company back. Yes, he does. And the book is out with that little bow. And in case you're curious, though, do Stark and Emma Frost, do they split by the end of the book? They do, because basically by the relaunch, they're not even mentioned at all. Yeah, Frost is not even mentioned as part of his life, but I did read the first issue of the relaunch, and oh boy, that book featured Melinda May as part of his board of directors, and for some reason, I do not know why the heck basically artists did this, they reskinned her. What do you mean by that? Well, Melinda May was played by a Chinese actress. And in the comics, she's always been portrayed as Asian. Always. Since her debut in the comics, in the S.H.I.E.L.D. Volume 3 comic by Mark Waid. She's always featured as Asian. And then for some strange reason, with this relaunch, they decided to make her black and give her tight hair and make her look exactly like the actress who played Martha Jones from Doctor Who. I do not know the reason for this at all. It's like, I look at this character like, okay, it says she's Melinda May, the Cavalry, and I'm like, no, she is not. That is not Melinda May. That is somebody who claims Melinda May because that's not her, because she is not black. She is Asian. That wasn't for the relaunch. If the trade comes out for it, I'm going to do a lot of ranting when it comes to that thing, because that was a stupid idea. Who the heck that would be a good idea? That's Reese Skinner Black. And that's going to make my list for things wrong to have this year. But in the case of this run, this was a very interesting run. It definitely felt like Iron Man. But for some reason, because Duggan was writing X-Men, we had thrown X-Men stuff in here. Despite the fact this book is known for being very separate from the X-Men, because Iron Man does his own thing. Now, the whole thing of like him being involved with the X-Men stuff, this was all Gerry Duggan's doing. He was the writer of X-Men at this point, so of course, basically, he would integrate stuff related to the X-Men. Now, here's the thing. Gerry Duggan, in my estimate, is not a terrible writer. He is not a terrible writer. He's a good writer. I do enjoy a lot of his work. My favorite work of his is Deadpool. I love his Deadpool work he did. I did enjoy also Arkham Manor. Now, I do know that the Mr. Freeze one-shot he did for One Bad Day, that received very, very negative reception for that one. Because of how he wrote the relationship between Mr. Freeze and his wife, Nora. But in the case of him writing this book, I think it was an interesting idea. I just kind of wish he would not have integrated the X-Men stuff. I think the X-Men stuff should have been separated from this book. The other reason why Iron Man got involved with the X-Men stuff, because Iron Man found out what Erasures was doing, and my guess is probably the reason why he did have Iron Man get involved with the X-Men stuff is because he needed a publicly known superhero, one who is a big face in the Marvel Universe, to get involved with to basically fight Erasures, who's not a member of the X-Men. So besides Spider-Man, who's actually the main book. Now you might be asking this: has Gerry Duggan ever wrote Spider-Man for him pop up in X-Men? He has. As a couple times. He did it for a couple issues of Spider-Man Deadpool, and of course part of the Spider-Man Deadpool to Death Those Part crossover, which involved Spider-Man Deadpool, Spider-Man basically Deadpool Works for Money, and Deadpool itself. It was a 6-part story involving all 3 books. So he has some experience around the character, and well, who knows if he might write the main book in the future. But as of currently, with this book wrapped up, with issue 20, which I can't confirm this. Yes, 20 is the final issue he wrote. Now, is there a book that he is writing currently? Because with X-Men wrapped up, basically the previous volume anyways, not the current book, is there a book he's going to come in the future for? Yes. Yes, he is. Of course, he did also return to Uncanny Avengers recently. Yep, he did. He most certainly did. He, of course, while writing X-Men, was also writing Savage Avenger, which was a fantastic book. Plus, I was looking for Marauders. So, okay, so with the conclusion of X-Men and Invincible Iron Man, the next book he's set to do is West Coast Avengers, which I believe will be his 3rd Avengers book. Yes. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. Excuse me. And I love the fact on the cover, they have Iron Man wearing his silver Centaurian armor, which I thought that was so cool, the fact you get a chance to wear this thing again. I don't know if I read the book or not, but I haven't read it yet, so yeah, I do find it interesting, though, the fact they brought back the West Coast Avengers. Like, and a lot of people were shocked about that Ultron has joined the group. You know, the robot who hates humans. But that's the only book he's doing currently. This is one book. He's not doing 2 or 3 books right now. He's doing only one, West Coast Avengers. Which I think is probably for the best for him. What do you mean by that? Well, for the last couple years, he's doing Iron Man. He did Uncanny Avengers. He did X-Men, obviously. He also has done Dark X-Men, the second line for the book. He's also doing all new Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, right there for his run for Deadpool, doing Infinity War stuff. And, of course, doing Savage the Conan. He did Savage Avengers. He basically kept himself busy over the course of the last few years. I think he probably realized, though, yeah, let's focus my attention on one book now, not 4 or 5 books. Yep. But what ranking do I give this book? I give it a 9 out of 10. But do I think this one was terrible? No. No, it's not. Is it as good as the last run? No. But it's good. I would say probably the previous volume is probably the best Iron Man book in years. It's better than Dan Slott's book. Yeah. Oh, and here you might be asking the question of, like, who took over for, like, who is the replacement writer? Oh yeah, also She-Hulk is basically part of the book too. So, Rory's book too. So the relaunch of the book is done by Spencer Ackerman. Who the heck is this guy? He apparently won the Pulitzer Prize, and this is his first comic he's ever written. And look how old he is. The guy is 44 years old, and this is his first comic he's written from Marvel. And also, this book did feature, like, armor, like a variant of the Ironheart attire. Yeah, it's going to be quite interesting, basically, to discuss this book when it finally comes on in trade. Yep, so, yeah, that's particular review. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications, and do this like button. Well, next up is basically As a Reincarnate Aristocrat. Okay, thank you. Bye.